All right, I think everyone's on here. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022 City Council meeting via Zoom. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Santee,
Here.
Alderman Glab,
Here.
Alderman McClatchy,
Here.
Alderman Harding,
Here.
Alderman Strack,
Here.
Alderman Devine,
Here.
Alderwoman Miller. Here.
Hey, Council, I would ask that everyone that is on here from the public, if you could mute yourself, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, moving on, the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go ahead and open up for public comment. Is there any public comment this evening? This is your opportunity to give public comment for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Last opportunity for public comment. Please unmute yourself if you'd like to make a public comment at this time. All right, moving on to consent agenda items 5A through 5L. Is there any items that the council would like to pull for separate consideration? Alderman Miller, go ahead.
I would like to pull E.
Okay. Any others? Alderman Glab?
Hey.
Anyone else? Alderman McClatchy?
C and J, thank you.
It's C as in cat, J as in Jack.
J as in Jack.
I did the minutes, yeah.
All right, any others? Okay, I am looking for a motion to approve 5B, D, F, G, H, I, K, L. Look for a motion to approve. Alderman Santee?
I will make that motion as presented by the mayor.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Strack?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion on these items by council. All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Glab,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes,
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller. Yes.
All right, moving on to the items that were pulled. We'll start with 5A. This was pulled by Alderman Glab. Resolution approving the request of the Illinois State Legislature to extend the city's downtown tax increment financial district. Alderman Glab, go ahead.
Yeah, I was on the council when we first started this TIP many years ago, and I just feel that there's been times that I have been totally disagreeable with the way we've used some of that money, and I just feel that all we're doing is drawing people that want to make some grandiose projects with our TIP money, and not necessarily what's best that fits for the city of McHenry, but what they'd like to see built. So I just wanted to vote on it separately. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions by council? I am looking for a motion to approve 5A as presented. Alderman Strack?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second, Alderman McClatchy?
I'll second.
Thank you. Last discussion on this item. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes,
Alderman Glab,
No.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller. Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda was pulled by Alderman McClatchy, 5C, authorization to execute a renewal of a lease agreement between the city of McHenry and Shrey and Tom Corp. DBA Main Street Station located at 4005 West Main Street. Go ahead, Alderman McClatchy.
thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I notice towns around us are buying the metro stations, metro buying, selling off their property. And I just wondered where this came in. If we get a lease with them and we buy the property, how does this work right now? If we're leasing it, do we own it?
Derek?
No, so we have an agreement with Union Pacific, which allows us to, and it's the same in a lot of communities. So it makes us the kind of the lessee of Union Pacific. And then we, for years, have turned around. Bill probably knows better than I. It's been 20 years or more. We've turned around and leased it to this entity under different owners, obviously, but this entity's been there for a long time.
They have.
Yeah.
Just a portion that we sublet. The Union Pacific retains a portion of the building, and then we actually are responsible for the envelope of the building
Okay.
as basically the lessor.
How is that going as far as the city buying the building outright?
No, so the council, if you remember, made the decision when we had a discussion to not do that. I mean, we'd have to go back and look at that meeting or that conversation, but to not take action on that. And I've seen nothing more from Union Pacific or Metro really on this particular station. I think there was 50, this is all from memory, I don't have it in front of me. I think there were 50 some stations on all the North Chicago, the Metro lines, I'm sorry. And I don't know where the status of any of those are really. I know some communities chose to move forward with buying the station area, primarily because they had redevelopment projects that were already in the process, and they needed the station area as a part of that redevelopment project, an agreement that they had with developers. But we don't have that. And again, the discussion at the time was that I believe that the cost of our station was, again, it's from memory, $500,000 or some amount more than that.
I think it was,
And not to move forward with that acquisition.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, if it does come down the line and something happens, there's opportunities for us and the business owner to end that lease agreement for the business. There's an out clause in the agreement, to be able to do that. And we've had a year to year, with this business for a couple of years now. And we'll continue to watch how the Union Pacific station stuff goes. And we may consider in the future, based on where that goes, going to a longer term lease or something like that. So that's on the table. But for now, we just wanted to bring it back as a year to year lease.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I just want to say that, yes, from what I can recall, that the council felt that the value of the property that's in question was priced way out of sight compared to what the market was. But what I really wanted to mention was the fact that before Trey and Tom Corporation came in to open up, that building was pretty much silent. It was there used for the people using the transportation of the trains. The station outside, when Trey and Tom came in, they cleaned the place up and they opened up a viable business, which is still standing today. So kudos to them, because they've done an excellent job there over the years and have survived downturns in the economy, COVID, and everything else.
Any other questions, comments by council? All right, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve 5C as presented. Alderman Santee?
I'll make the motion to approve 5C as presented.
Thank you. Second by Alderman McClatchy.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Glab,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda was pulled by Alderwoman Miller. That was 5E, authorization to execute a lease agreement between the city of McHenry and All Marine Service for the South Harbor Piers property and buildings through May 1st, 2023. Go ahead, Sue.
Thank you. I rarely disagree with staff recommendation, but on this agenda item, I have to say that I'm not in agreement with recommendation. I think given the fact that we do have developer interest down in that area, I don't know that I want to enter into an agreement for a full year of slips and storage. And I don't necessarily agree that we need to have a agreement with, and not that I'm against Dylan and Michelle, but I think we need to open this up to other opportunities to have someone either look at the marina operation or really rethink that from a staffing position. First of all, I don't think we need to look at storage because I think we're going to want a developer in there before we even think about boat storage. So then we're really looking at April 15th to October 15th maximum. And I really want to reconsider, can we do this from a city staffing point? Or do we really want to just have someone else who's already maybe in town doing this? So I just can't go along with the recommendation.
Can I address that? And then I know there's some questions as well, but I will say, I think the terms, I was able to talk to a couple other aldermen who also brought up similar concerns, but particularly about the term with the potential for development. And I think that's definitely something that we could consider, as long as we can tell those potential the boaters right up front that, hey, we can't guarantee you storage, and that, you know, October 15th, October 31st, whatever that date we pick is the drop dead date. You have to plan to find storage. The second part, I would say, is that we as a Parks Department cannot run this operation. The more that I look into it, it's not something that we can take on. It's not something that me as a Parks Director, I want us to take on because of the manpower concerns, as well as the expertise in running. It's, you know, it's so, initially I thought it was just, we're just going to rent these slips out. It's that easy. And I don't feel it's that easy anymore. I think that it needs much more attention than we are able to give it, to provide the boat owners a level of service that they should expect for their boats. That's just my opinion in talking to some people about the operation on the marina. I will say that the reason I reached out to Dylan and Michelle and did not pursue other entities, especially that are in town, was number one, it was somebody we have an existing relationship who has expertise in that business. Somebody who was agreeable to the terms of both a very short-term lease to be able to come in there, as well as a cap, a 10% max cap on any increase of the fees. You know, I know that there's others in town that are charging significantly more, but just to give some background and history of why I presented what I did for this supplement.
Thank you, Bill. Any other comments, questions? Alderman Santee, go ahead.
Yeah, Alderwoman Miller beat me to the punch in regards to pulling it, and I'm kind of following her thoughts on this, especially number one, and speaking to Bill earlier, I'd like to see it where it ends somewhere in the month of October, November, so that we are not even offering any kind of storage, just thinking like what Alderwoman Miller said about the potential of development happening there. I'd hate to see us pulling boats in the mid-February of next year because someone wants to knock down that building because we cut a deal with them and we're reimbursing people with boats being stored over there. So I did question too in regards to, well, did we talk to other marinas? I looked at rates, or I asked about rates, and I understand we are at a lower end of the rate structure in the river and also on the chain with what we're offering. And I kind of, was thinking also about, why not have staff there? I mean, we're pulling in boats to piers and let them tie up and come and go as they please. Well, if you got somebody with a maintenance problem, they can go down to their favorite mechanic and get it towed to Pistaki, but they might want to use our in and out. Do we change our staffing? I know we do some part-time with Parks and Rec on weekends, but you can, I mean, the key timeframes here are definitely Saturday and Sunday. So I've never run a parks department, so I am listening to Director Hobson in regards to that point about maybe not stepping into a different industry like that. But I definitely see the need to bring the time frame down on this recommendation. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Strack, go ahead.
So to shadow Alderwoman Miller's comments and Alderman Santee as well, and was speaking with staff, I think, the same issue with the storage and the possible redevelopment down there. My initial thought when Director Hobson and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about this was, I really looked at this as more of we're just going to provide a slip with no real services to the public other than just giving them a place to park their boat. So initially, my perspective on this whole project was literally just collecting a fee for a slip and having that slip be very, a very simplistic process. They have a place to be. There isn't a service aspect. There's none of that part of this. So in my mind, I've always thought that was the direction that this was headed. And then, to see a little greater extent of what this is, I still, in the back of my mind, I think that we could facilitate it on a very simple level where they're not providing some more of those services. But again, that's what this group is here to discuss and figure out. I just think that's my landing on where that is with what we would do with that space, and knowing that we've got this, hopefully a potential redevelopment out there. Thank you.
Hey, Sean. Alderman Glad.
Yeah, have we done any research as far as after October 31st? Where would these people go with these boats? What's available in the area? I mean, we've got some people over there that have been probably renting those slips for many years, and now we're just going to say, well, we're going to redevelop it now. Now you're gone, and that's it. I think it would be nice if we had some kind of game plan to help out those that are leasing those slips as far as what happens at the end of this season. Do we have any idea of where they can go and what's available, or?
I don't have an idea from a storage point of view. I know that there's outdoor storage lots. I'm not aware of, the bulk indoor storage. I know that they exist and they're out there. I couldn't begin to speak on it intelligently.
As a
Bill,
boat,
with what we're proposing, do we have access to a lift, portable lift? That's pretty much what's been going on out there all these years.
Yes, we do. The lift that's out there belongs to us when we acquired the Riviera Marina.
Is that going to be sufficient in order to bring those boats in for storage?
Yeah, it would be.
It'll get them out of the water, but will it move them to wherever?
Nope. Well, they'd have to have like whoever has that boat would have to have a trailer. If there's no outdoor storage, then that boat gets picked up and you bring your trailer and we'll set that boat on your trailer and you take that wherever you want to go, or your driveway or wherever you can find a spot.
Okay.
and as a boat owner myself, I've had two boats, and I've rented from places in Fox Lake, and it was my, they didn't have indoor outdoor storage locally. They had it up in Wisconsin. So, I mean, there was really no opportunity for me to really, them to take it out and store it anywhere. So also our prices are a lot lower than a lot of the other locations. So, I mean, it's kind of their obligation to really find out where they want to store it after the fact. And that's what I had to do several times. So
So what you're saying then is we have no game plan for them. They're just out on their own. They'll have to figure out what they're going to do at the end of the season.
I've had to do that twice. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the funnest thing to do, but as long as they know about that up
As long
front.
as they know up front, I think that's a different scenario, that they're not going into it thinking that they have winter storage. That is an October 31st or a November 15th or whatever that date is, if council so chooses to amend that, if they want to move forward with this, or if the majority says we don't want to do this at all, then I think that's a different discussion that we need to worry about. But just being upfront with the boat owners that are there and the people that are interested in and moving forward. I've spoken to probably a third of the people that are there, that are interested in coming back, as well as those, a number of that have already made arrangements to move their boat to other marinas.
Just because of the uncertainty?
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Alderman Santi.
Well, I mean, but Alderwoman Miller had her hand up first. I'll direct the floor to you, Sue, if you still had thoughts or had a question.
Yeah. So I had my boat down there for years and they never guaranteed storage. It was always first come, first serve. So you were always, they didn't have space for all the boats that were in the south slip. So it was a first come, first serve. So you were always pretty much on notice that if you didn't raise your hand and say, I want in, you had to go find yourself some space anywhere. So much like Mayor Jett, you know, when you're a boat owner, that's, you know, that's on your top of mind anyway. You got to figure out where you're going to put your boat all winter. And some places are more expensive than others. So when you own a boat, it's, you know, it's that never ending BOAT, bring out another 1,000. So that's how that rolls. So as long as we put these people on notice that we are providing no storage or no storage opportunity, they start scrambling in April when they drop their boats in the water of where it's going to go in October. And all we need to do is get it out, put it on a trailer, or put it on a dolly, and they're good to go. This is not new news for a boat owner. Can't stay in the water October 15th. Water goes down.
Alderman Strack.
Mayor Jett, just to let you know, I think I saw Trish bounce out. My battery backup just went off in my house here. So I think we had a power flicker. I just want to let you know Trish is,
City
I
Hall just-
don't believe she's on the call.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Let's give it a second for her to get back on here.
Yeah, I flickered here too.
I flickered also.
Everybody did.
And Wayne, I saw Pat had his hand up too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, should we just continue, David? Is that all right? And then she can go back to the video? You're all right with that? All right, Alderman Santi, go ahead.
No, actually, Alderwoman Miller had most what I had to say. I mean, you're the boat owner. You decide where your pier is every year. You decide how you're going to just store it. You're the boat owner. That's, you know, that's what you have to do. We're not telling them they have to come back every year to our piers. If it's a great rate, fantastic. But it's up to the boat owners, and they know that. And you know, that's something that they have. That's decisions that they have to make every year. Thank you.
Alderman Devine, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm cool with the lease agreement with all marine service, but I think that time frame needs to be shortened to like mid-October, October 15th. So
And
with that.
Go ahead. Alderman.
yeah, I agree with that too. I just don't, I'm not a boat owner today. I used to be one many, many years ago. So when are you pulling your boat out? The 15th of October? Should we push it into November? Make it a little bit more comfortable for them? I don't know. What you tell me, Mayor, Alderwoman Miller, Pat, whatever.
Bill, go ahead.
In speaking with Dylan and Michelle, who are on this Zoom call as well, the one thing that as a boat owner, and I've never been a boat owner, so I just try to have friends that own boats. It works out much better for me. In any case, the winterizing a boat. So like if the boat comes out October 15th and we want to winterize those boats so they can take it to storage, any couple week, month leeway in there is something that I think that they had mentioned to me about some consideration, and they were, Sue and Wayne, you might know better, even Ross, you might know better about it than me in terms of that winterization process, or again, Dylan and Michelle if are on.
Yeah, end of September is usually when we took ours out, because I would always wait till last minute and then find someone, you don't want to have it freeze. So end of September, I think October 15th or, is sufficient. I think you'd hope to get your boats out by October 15th.
Well, and the other
What's the
variables
drawdown
is
of the water?
the water level, they stop regulating the locks. So they make a decision when they're going to let the water go down, and you know, depending on your prop, you want your boat out, and depending on where you're storing, you know, I always stored in an indoor barn, and they're like, we want everybody in by October 15th. So if you were there on October 16th, you know, you lose. So it was, okay, I pulled mine September 30th, winterized, and was at the door on October 3rd. So, you know, it's where you're ending up that dictates when you're getting pulled. Life as a boater.
All right. Any other questions, comments by council?
So are we going with October 15th or just to
That's
the
what I was
end
just
of
gonna say,
October
Bill,
for
if you
the
want-
end of the lease? Like they'll be
if
off
you-
the property, or that lease will expire the 31st, whether the boats are coming out the 15th. The lease expires on the 31st.
Does someone want to make a motion with October 15th in mind? Alderman Santi?
Here on mute.
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's authorization to attach a lease for all marina service for South Harbor Piers property and buildings through, do you want to make it October 15th or October 31st?
I say 15th, right?
As a staff,
I'm
I would
kinda-
prefer the 31st. I mean,
I will
2
go-
weeks
I
should
will
make a
go-
difference at that point.
Yep, I will go with October 31st, 2022.
Okay. Can I get a second? Alderman McClatchy?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion by council? Alderman Miller?
I would just want to amend that with saying, making sure that all boats are out of the water before they, you know, before the lease terminates. You know, regardless of where they're going, I don't want boats floating out there and the lease being done, because then we're stuck with them. So somehow write it into a lease that all boats are out of the water. If nothing else, they're out on trailers.
Okay.
Because otherwise, Bill, you're stuck pulling them out and putting them on trailers. And if you don't have that expertise, that's a lot of liability.
That's why that's primarily the reason. I don't want any of the liabilities. I want somebody who has the expertise in this field to be able to deal with all those concerns. The last thing I want to do is leave a drain plug out and somebody sinks their boat.
Yeah.
Wayne.
Well, and like I said earlier, I have no problem with Dylan and Michelle. I'm just a little disappointed that we aren't reaching out to a couple of our people in town to see if they had an interest in this project.
Yeah.
But, you know, because again, I appreciate all that Dylan and Michelle have done and the fact that they've had a relationship with us. But I also think we should always open opportunities to our local people. And now that we have marinas in town, I'm just disappointed we didn't have that conversation with them.
Alderman Santi?
Okay, I will agree with that amendment. Do you want a date attached to it? But I will agree with that amendment in regards to all boats must be out of the water prior to the October 31st date, 15th? 15th, is that Dave? Is that the
Yep.
hidden ghost voice of Dave McCardle? There it is.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that. Okay, I'll go with all boats out of the water on the 15th. And the lease runs through October 31st of 2022.
Okay. Alderman McClatchy, you agree with that?
Yeah, I'll agree to amend my second.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, before
go
you
ahead.
take a vote, could we get the other party to agree to this so we make sure we have an agreement?
That's what I
Michelle?
was just going to suggest, to make sure Michelle or Dylan, either one, if you could unmute and speak to the newly proposed terms.
Hey guys, how you doing? This is Dylan.
Hey, Dylan.
So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to give a brief description of what I was thinking in the beginning, and I understand your concerns because primarily is the development, and as a marina owner, also with the boat club, and what we're doing down in McHenry with the retros, my primarily is for the customer, and what I was looking at is, originally the year primarily because, to get them out of the water, to give them storage, but I understand, that's not the way we're going to go. But we run our boat club till October 31st. It seems like every year it's warmer and warmer and warmer, and the boats are staying out longer and longer, and it makes it more attractive to marinas that, try to provide, that level where they're letting people stay in till the 15th. So the boat club now runs to the 15th, and I got customers that are trying to get me to leave those in longer. And that's my cutoff date. That's what every marina on the lowers cutoff date is, the 15th. The marinas want them out of the water. I even took 50 boats from Bangs Lake this year because they were overloaded because they sold to the park district. But primarily, I guess it's going to run pretty much like a Lake County Forest Preserve. But there are more aspects to, a lot of those customers have been there a long time. Sure, a lot of those trailers haven't been serviced in years, and these customers are going to have to take those boats somewhere. So you get on the road and your bearings are bad, you got no brakes, you got no lights, and they've been used to just having somebody pluck the thing in and out of the water. That was some of my concern too, where we're going to have a lot of trailer problems, and if we're not there servicing the boats and they need to take them somewhere else now, and they can't just be plucked out of the water, now somebody's got to move all those trailers around, because you got 60 trailers and you need those parking spots, in the lot for customers. So I'd imagine I saw some get parked behind that, there's like a tree line. I'm imagining some get parked in the buildings. So somebody's going to have to be there to get that trailer out for that customer, and may have to move 5-10 trailers to get that one out, because now it's not just going to be, plucked out. It's going to have to either get towed to another marina by hand or by boat, and or it's going to have to get put on a trailer. But at the end of the day, all these boats are going to have to get pulled out of the water on a trailer that may not have been on the road in years. So winterization, I looked at most of those boats. Primarily they're all IOs, which hold water. So if it'd be nice. I mean, I run winterization and shrink wrap into December, and I know that's not what you guys were looking for, but if it gets below, 20 degrees for a couple days, then we have, a chance of them ruining their engine blocks, and that's, $5,000-$10,000. So it was my primarily is just being upfront with the customer. It was my reputation. So I wanted to make sure that I'm upfront with the customer and I'm providing as much service as I can to set them up, because obviously, this isn't going to be a long-term solution for wherever they're going to go next. And maybe I'm going to gain a customer, maybe I'm not, but at least get them on the road where, they're set up for where they're going to be going, in the years to come.
Thank you, Dylan. All right, so we okay moving forward here?
Yep, sounds like it.
All right, clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
No.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller,
No.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda was pulled by Alderman McClatchy. Item 5J, February 7th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I just wanted to mention that I voted yes on the Art Expo convention thing. I think it was item F, and it was recorded as nay.
All right, good catch.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. We'll go ahead and take care of it. Thank you, Frank. All right, any other questions, comments about this item? Looking for a motion and a second to approve with the change of, obviously, our city clerk and Monty will go ahead and take a look at it and verify, but with that change, so. Looking for a motion and a second. Alderman McClatchy?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Strack?
As revised.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
All right, thank you, council. Before we get it going on the action items, I just want to say we do have a couple items to discuss in executive session regarding property acquisition. So I just wanted to let council and also the public know that we will be going into executive session during item 8. So it'll be a real quick. We'd get everyone out of the Zoom meeting, and then we'll let you back in after the executive session. So about 5 minutes, 7 minutes max. So, all right. Moving on to individual action item 6A is a motion to approve an ordinance granting a use variation for a 3-unit multifamily building at 1410 North Riverside Drive. Director Palarecki.
Thank you, Mayor. The petitioner, Patricia Sudol, is requesting approval of a use variation to accommodate the existing 3-unit multifamily residence at 1410 North Riverside Drive. Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on January 19th. 2 residents did speak at the public hearing. Neither of them objected to it and said that they've lived next to that 3-bedroom for a long time. We don't know how long it's been in existence. Records go back at least 40 years that it's been a 3-bedroom. So Patricia is on the line tonight. If you had questions for the petitioner, if not, I'm available as well for questions.
Thank you, Ross. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion and a second for 6A as presented. Alderman Miller.
I'll make that motion to approve 6A as presented.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Santee.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion by council. Go ahead, Alderman Santee.
Real quick, Ross or Patricia, how many spaces are available there for parking, Ross?
I'm certain that I know we haven't had a parking issue there, but I think there's around 6 spots. Is that correct, Patricia?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Yeah, I have no problem with this. It's just, we need to look at protecting our downtown residential areas. 2 flats with a, apartment above a garage or a barn, that kind of thing. I think we got to, kind of put the brakes on those kind of things. But this has been there forever. It's right next to a business, and I would think someday this is probably going to be a business too.
Alderman Strack, go ahead.
So I have a question for Attorney McCardle. I was involved in the sale of this particular property, so I just need to be clear on how I vote tonight. I was the listing agent when this property was sold months ago to Ms. Sudol, and I don't want to jeopardize that vote.
Yeah, so you just need to determine yourself, but the normal course would be to abstain. And you disclosed your interest. It's not a contract, so you're clear of the other concern we have on interest in contracts. It's just
David, your audio is horrible.
We heard half of that.
No offense.
I think I got it.
These fancy headphones I have. How's
Yeah,
that?
you need the big ones.
It's better.
That's better.
I need the big ones back. So
I
so
think what I heard,
would
David, was abstain just to be safe.
abstain from the discussion and the vote.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Glad, go ahead.
The only thing I'm going to mention is the fact that all we're doing is just cleaning up something that existed for years, and we'll probably down in the future have a couple more that'll pop up somewhere, that people don't realize. So I have no problem with it.
Thank you. I'm going to open up for public input. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to make a public comment regarding this item? I see none. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
and then I just put that you're going to abstain, Alderman Strack.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 6B is a motion to approve an ordinance granting a sign variance to allow a changing electronic display and message board as a wall sign of for the property located at 1208 North Green Street. Director Palarecki, you want to go ahead?
Sure, Mayor. Community Development Department received a sign variance request for the Vixen 1208 North Green Street. The applicant is seeking a variance to allow a changing electronic message and display board as a wall sign. The current ordinance only allows these types of signs to be installed on a freestanding sign. The applicant is in the house tonight. If there are any questions from the council.
Thank you, Ross. Alderman Glad, go ahead.
Yeah, Russ, how does this differ from what the corner has over there for the Buddy Z building?
That's a freestanding sign, actually.
I mean, it's attached to the building.
No, it's not. It's on a pole.
Looks like it is, yeah.
Okay, sure, it
It's just
seems like.
the pole is right up against the building.
Okay, so,
And that's the thing, Alderman Glab, if there was room, and I don't know why we excluded wall signs when we created this ordinance, but if there was room to put a freestanding sign on the property, we wouldn't be here tonight. We
right,
could put the freestanding sign up with the video board.
yeah,
And the only thing that we looked at this, and I'm sure you read the agenda supplement. My only concern was with the crosswalk and having constant changes on that sign with traffic, so we're going to limit them, and the mayor is open to that, to 30-second changes. So, that gets you through. If it changes while you're going through, at least it's not changing 2 or 3 times and you're focusing on the sign.
So,
Yep. Alderman Santee, go ahead.
so each advertisement, announcement, what have you on that sign is going to be at least 30 seconds in length.
That's correct.
Okay. And the only other question I have then is this sign, I was presented by one of the people reworking, talking about it for a few minutes with him a week ago. Is there a difference in this sign as compared to other LED signs in town? I mean, we do have message boards like this, correct? Is it a different kind of light bulb or lighting here or something?
No, they're just not on the walls of the buildings or the facades. They're all on freestanding independent signs.
Okay. So, and then this one sits on the wall, attached to the wall, correct? And
Correct.
it's-
Where the current
it's-
McHenry Downtown Theater. sign
Exactly,
is.
that same space. And so, and that's parallel to the street.
It's
For the
angled
most
a little
part,
bit,
right?
yes. For the most part, it is, yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Strack?
So at the end of the day, Director Palarecki, I'm going to guess that we're going to see more and more of this when we're in a downtown sidewalked environment where we don't have the ability to put anything on a post.
Correct.
So, I mean, this ultimately we'll see this again.
And down the street, you see Jexels on the 120. They have a small one, but they were granted a variance for that sign as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Alderwoman Miller, go ahead. You're on mute.
Thank you.
No problem.
So if you go to New York and you go to some of their narrow streets, you see their signage extending off the building to a pole down to the sidewalk, or their digital display signs extended off an arm off the front of the building. Where does that fall into our ordinance?
Those are called projecting signs. So like Jexels on the 120 frontage,
Yeah.
that is a projecting sign.
So where does that fall in our ordinance?
They would be allowed to have a projecting sign, but it still can't be a scrolling video message board. The
So
only
does
place,
that mean since that's the trend and the direction that everybody is going, because that's the best you can have, we need to look at our ordinance and say we need to rewrite this? Or, because I don't think, I agree with Alderman Strzok that this is what everybody wants, and this is what everybody's going to want in the future. So instead of having variance after variance after variance, wouldn't it just be easier to look at the future and say, let's fix this in a bigger picture?
Yeah, this is only the second one that I've brought before council in 6 years. So, I mean, if it was a consistent request from property owners, from business owners, then I would definitely, put more effort into looking at our current ordinance and change, bringing it to council for a change. But with only two, I would rather focus my efforts on some of the other things that are happening in town at this point. But
Okay,
if
because
they,
I love this idea. I love digital message boards. I wish I could afford one. And this is expensive. So I think every business would want one if they knew they could have one. So it's going to be a trend once they start popping up. So I'd rather be prepared than not prepared.
and we do have a lot of them in town. It's just the C4 district that is really limited because in,
Right.
in all of your other commercial properties, there's room to put them on a pole or a freestanding sign.
Mhm.
Any other, Alderman Glad, go ahead.
Yeah, just Ross, one thing I want to mention is the fact that, sometimes our ordinances are a little bit stricter for certain things like this, just because it has to come to council. And it's just a safety catch because there are times that something just doesn't look quite appropriate and the council may decide not to allow it. And it gives them the opportunity. And if we just change the ordinances to allow everything, then what are we sitting here for? So I'll leave it at that.
The only thing I have to say is a variance fee. So we had to pay $175 variance fee above and beyond. Not that it means much considering how much the sign was, but for companies that do want to go through this process, it does kind of.
It used to be $950, so you're getting a break.
Thanks, Ross.
You
That
can
makes
go
me
by percentage of cost of the sign.
So that, I don't know. That's just me, but
5% of the cost of the sign.
what's that?
They'd all lie to me about the cost of the sign then.
All right. Any other questions, comments by council? All right. Any public input regarding this item? All right, clerk, please call the roll. Oh, actually, we didn't get a motion or a second. Jeez.
Right, sorry.
6B, as presented, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve. Alderman Strack,
I'll make that motion as presented.
thank you. Alderman Miller,
I'll second that motion.
thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 6C is a motion to adopt a vacant building incentive program as proposed. Director Martin, go ahead and present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Attached is a proposed vacant building incentive program to encourage the redevelopment of vacant commercial buildings within the city. It's geared towards non-industrial buildings, and it's intended to provide a 5-year tax abatement for multiple taxing bodies for totally vacant buildings, which have been vacant for at least 3 years. And like I said, it's targeted towards non-industrial buildings. Staff did have some preliminary discussions with other taxing bodies, and the idea went over pretty well. I did put in the packet a list of some of the vacant buildings that we have in the city. We have our fair share of vacant buildings and some photographs of some vacant buildings, and we have them in all shapes and sizes. This is another tool, that we want to have in our toolbox to try to get these, the ideal scenario is to get these buildings redeveloped. And this acts like a TIF. The taxes that are paid right now, nothing happens with those. Those are basically kept there. Everybody gets paid what's there now, and then the increase in taxes, that's what gets abated for 5 years. And if it gets passed tonight, approach the taxing bodies, have a discussion with them, and possibly go before their boards and see how they look at this. But it's kind of like a community effort to try to get some of these vacant buildings addressed. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Doug. All right, I'm open up for, no, I'm not. I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve 6C as presented. Alderman Santee?
I will make the motion to approve the vacant building incentive program as presented.
Thank you. Alderman McClatchy for a second.
Yeah, I'll second that. And great idea. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion by council. Alderman Santee, go ahead.
Yeah, I spoke about vacant buildings probably about, I don't know, 2 months ago. And I did put the onus on staff to a certain extent. So I do want to applaud Director Martin for stepping up to the plate with this and making a move like this. And once again, I will go back to staff just to say, now you really, now it really starts, because you can go after these other taxing bodies and pitch it to them, because I think the more buy-in from different taxing bodies for this incentive gives the potential buyer developer to go all in with working with an empty building here in town and doing something with it. So it's a great move. It's move number 1 or 2 in the process of getting there. We're going in the right direction. Let's just keep moving forward like this. And, love to see something come back to us where we have 1 or 2 programs show up and there's buy-in from multiple taxing bodies in regards to doing this type of project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vic. Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I just want to state that I couldn't be in favor of something like this, because every time you turn around, we have to give something. We have to give something to get development. One of the things is we're talking, okay, the other taxing bodies are on board, or some of them may not be, but if you are not, if you are relieving their responsibility of paying the tax, it means the rest of us pay that much more. So in essence, what you're doing is you're raising, even though it might be a small iota, you are still raising the taxes on the rest of the taxpayers within those entities, each government body. So I like the idea of I brought that up years back as far as the vacant and unused properties where you give them so much time, and after so much time that they either get them rented or else they get torn down. But I think that would be a better incentive to get things rolling than to give them tax abatements again, because again, if you're abating the tax, then the rest of us are paying it. And we'll be talking more about how we're paying and we're paying and we're paying. So thank you.
Muted.
You're muted, Mayor.
Alderman Santee?
No, I appreciate Alderman Glad's concerns here, but we're trying to get something into the city instead of it just staying as is. And yes, it's an incentive, but I think if you go door to door in the businesses and say, do you want a neighbor running a business next to you, or do you want an empty building? And just that straight question, it's going to be, yes, I want a neighbor running a business. And an initiative of forcing them to do something, or we're going to tear it down, or it's going to be torn down. Well, guess what? Then the cost of tearing it down is falling back on the city. And do you want to hand out these types of programs all the time? No, I don't. But do I see an initiative here where we can strike up a conversation and get some people to the table more then I'm willing to do that. I want activity. I want Doug Martin's phone ringing. I want Doug out there, so I want to make sure Doug's out there with as much ammunition in his pocket that he can bring with him. So, it's an incentive program, to get activity, to get businesses into the city. And yes, it's a certain avenue that might not be the 100% end all be all, but I like that we're going down this path, and we're incenting these people to come to the table and hopefully cut a deal and get activity in a building that has just been sitting there, because there definitely is. And we're not different. I mean, there are many other cities when I drive by that have these open, empty buildings that I know they want to, get some activity in there. And I thank you.
Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to echo that. And I guess the other side of Alderman Glab's coin is, if we get these businesses, we're getting tax money out of those businesses, and also it will help the other businesses around it. So I think it's a win-win.
Any other questions, comments by council? Alderwoman Miller.
Yeah, its intent is also just one more tool in the toolbox, as Director Martin said. It's not going to be the end all be all. It's not going to incentivize every person that looks at these properties, but it's one more reason for him to open a conversation about McHenry. So it's not the solution to fill these buildings. It's one more tool in his toolbox of economic development. So these are the kind of programs that we should support and continue to move forward. They're initiatives that he needs to better our town.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Glab.
Yeah, years ago, we used to call this a tax and spend type philosophies, and that's exactly what it is tax and spend. I just can't see it. Like I said, as far as it would be interesting with a 5-year tax abatement, just how much value, how many years will it take in sales tax, if you even get a retailer in there that will actually charge sales tax, to recoup the 5 years of tax abatement that you're offering. And that would be interesting to have a chart like that. We have all these charts that we send us, but not that type of a chart, because that would actually probably wind up to be a negative. So, like I said, I just feel that sometimes we're just willing to, let's give this away, let's give that away. We did that last year with our building, residential building, as far as cutting our impact fees. And it just, every time you turn around, it's, let's let the average taxpayer pay more, but let's see if we can give breaks to other people to get things going. Well, maybe if it's the right type of businesses, they could come in here and make it without having to worry about incentives. So that's all I got to
say. Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I thought I heard Doug say this in his presentation, but I cut out there. Just clarify that the abatement is on the increment in taxes, so it acts like a TIF. So any taxes that are generated from a property right now, a vacant property, would still go to the relevant taxing districts, and the abatement would only be on for 5 years on whatever increment. So as a business moves into that property that was vacant and had been vacant for at least 3 years, obviously the assessors will be out there and reassess that property. Those taxes will probably be increased based on that property being back in play, and hopefully that there would be some increase in the property value and the property taxes generated based on that. And that's what the abatement is on the increment, not on the existing taxes. And I guess just to add to that, I mean, I don't know, maybe the real estate agents would know better than I, but I would think that those buildings that have at least been vacant for 3 years, that there's probably been appeals on their property tax values, and the taxes have probably gone down based on those appeals. And so if this is a way that we can at least stabilize that, to be able to get somebody in there and generate new taxes on it, forget the sales tax portion of it and what that might generate for a second, then at least it's an opportunity to give something for improving that property on that new tax that's generated.
Yeah, and Sue and Sean could probably hit on that, but if you have a vacant building, you're not appealing it, I guess you're kind of stupid for not doing that. So I would agree with that. So Sean, go ahead.
I mean, ultimately, I understand Alderman Glab's concern, but if we're talking about the increment only, just what Derek said, if you have a vacant building for 3 years and the assessor retouches it and reassesses it, we've just made up the increment in the first year. It's an incentive that isn't going to be a huge amount of dollars, but does give somebody at least an extra incentive to do something with a building who's been sitting empty.
Agreed. Alderman Miller, were you going to echo that? I'm guessing.
No, I was going to echo that and say that, most landlords are savvy enough that they have sought out some recovery from a vacancy, and that could be up to 50% depending on, again, your assessor. So they've had a 50% stipulation on some properties. So we have nothing to do but gain.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
No.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 6D, is a motion to adopt ordinances amending the McHenry City Code, adding a new Title 3, Chapter 8, imposing a new electric use tax, and a new Chapter 9 imposing a new gas use tax, and authorizing the execution of an agreement with NICOR for the collection and distribution of the natural gas use tax. Director Moorfield, you want to go ahead and present this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I first wanted to take, there's two things I wanted to mention as part of this, and I won't regurgitate the memo that's pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted to provide some depth and perspective to kind of how we got to this point and why this item is before council tonight, and then answer a couple questions or put on the floor to clarify a couple of questions I got from multiple council members, just so that it's out there for consideration, and then you can discuss it from there. But that way, it's what I heard at least, and then you guys can discuss it from there. I'm looking at some notes, that's why I'm looking down here. So it's hard to believe this year is my 10th year here with the city of McHenry, but at least two aldermen are here that were part of my interview process. And hopefully they will remember, I know that they will, that one of the top items, if not the top item that was asked of me during that process, is to make sure that the city becomes more financially stable and actually improves from where it was 10 years ago. And that has always been my mission. My primary mission as the city administrator, and I think I can speak directly to all the directors that are on here too, that we're all on the same page in terms of being financially frugal with the city's money, and only making recommendations on things that we think will put the city in a positive financial stance. And I just have some examples of that over the last 10 years, just real quick. So we together, staff, myself, and council, totally revamped the city's budget from what it was back in the day to make it way more transparent now than it ever was, in terms of just, you're not just looking at numbers, but there's some depth behind what those numbers actually mean. We implemented a new capital improvement program to start to identify, at the time, it was a 5-year plan to start to identify what the city's capital needs were. I used to refer to it as a Christmas list. And we put that document together. We've presented and you've adopted a balanced operating budget every single year for the last 10 years that we can be proud of, that a lot of municipalities have not been able to do. We've been able to make financial decisions to rebuild the city's general fund balance. I don't remember, and I didn't ask Carolyn to look at what it was 10 years ago, but I can say it was probably around the $2 million mark, which would not have been close to what our 120-day current policy is. So we've been able to make good financial decisions to get that fund balance back to or at a level that will buffer us from any sort of major economic catastrophe. It may not last us very long, but for at least 120 days, it'll buy us time to make decisions to respond to that economic catastrophe like a pandemic. We've been able to redistribute funding in the way that we fund different initiatives to have this year, a $2 million road program, which is something that Alderman Glab has challenged myself and staff to do for many years. And in fact, this upcoming budget is going to include double that for a road program, a local road program. It's going to recommend a $4 million local road program next year. So we've been able not only to rebuild our fund balance, but the way that we handle our money allow us to dedicate more money to the city's #1 capital asset program, which is the local road program, and not have it compete with other things like vehicles, equipment, operating expenses, et cetera, et cetera. Not that long ago, at the end of last year, staff recommended and council considered and adopted measures to ensure that our water and sewer capital asset program, at least our maintenance and replacement program, could be funded for the foreseeable future. Yeah, we had to adjust base fees to be able to do that. And it was a tough decision to make, I know, because it means increased fees for users. But at the end of the day, it means that we're able to be proactive on our capital maintenance and replacement program for our water and sewer system, which is a lot cheaper than having them be reactive and fix major catastrophic events along the way. We were able to work together to deal with the pandemic over the last 2 years and the financial impacts of that, and make decisions again together, because it wasn't just me and it wasn't just the directors, but it was a dialogue between council and us to be able to make the right decisions to navigate our way through that pandemic and not be in a worse financial situation coming out of it than we were going into it. And then the latest thing that kind of brought us to this point tonight is I tasked Troy a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago, with taking a different look at how we identify and plan for addressing our our general fund capital asset maintenance and replacement program. And again, just as a reminder, basically in the way we've dealt with it, to be simplistic on it, is general fund dollars go into a pot. We fine tune or look through each year our operating budget and narrow that down as much as we can go. We estimate what our revenues are going to be based on trends. And what's left out of that basically is used to go towards capital asset replacement and maintenance, and not really, so I won't say and not really looking forward into the future at planning for capital projects that we either know are coming up or that we would like to come up or may come up at some point in the future. And so I tasked Troy with taking a look at building a new plan specifically to deal with our capital asset maintenance and replacement. So the replacement of existing capital assets like vehicles, equipment, building maintenance, no expansion, nothing new, all existing facilities, existing capital assets. On January 3rd, as you remember, Troy did a really, for the topic, did a really succinct presentation on the research that he conducted in terms of developing a list of all our existing capital assets that will need to, and putting together a replacement and maintenance schedule for those, so that we know each year for X number of years, this is the amount of funding that we need to be able to address the needs of that program. And that was presented to council back on January 3rd. There was also included in that some recommendations for how to fund that, because what I've heard from council in past budget discussions is, consistently look for other funding sources or non-traditional funding sources or other ways that we can fund, especially capital needs, knowing that we have a huge list of existing capital needs. And one of those that came out of that was the consideration of the utility tax. So basically it's two, a tax on electric use so an agreement with ComEd or an ordinance adopted that taxes ComEd electric use, and one dealing with natural gas, not the gas that's pumped at a station, but through NICOR into your homes or businesses. And we conducted some research on that and bringing that back to council for consideration. And again, one of the things I wanted to clarify, and again, all the facts and figures are in the memorandum, so I won't go through all of those unless somebody wants me to. But some of the questions I got from a couple of council members that I just wanted to throw on the floor so that we're all had the same information was, first of all, it's not all or nothing. There's two ordinances that are included in this. There is an electric use tax ordinance, and there is a natural gas use tax ordinance, and then an agreement that NICOR wants us to execute for the natural use gas. So the vote does not have to be on adopting both of those or none of those. It could and should be two separate votes, one on electric and one on natural gas. So that was the first question that I got that I wanted to clarify. In the documentation and in the memo and in the ordinances, we make it clear as staff that the electric use tax would go 100% towards our existing capital asset maintenance and replacement program. So that list of capital assets was identified by Troy back in January, and it's also included in council's packet. So basically what we need each year to be able to fund that. And I strongly recommended that language be included in the ordinance that says this is what that money will go towards. And on top of that, that it will absolutely not be used for any operating expenses whatsoever. So no staffing, no supplies, none of that, but that money goes into a separate fund once collected that goes 100% towards the capital asset maintenance and replacement program that we've identified. The natural gas use tax alternatively would be for new capital projects. So those things that we either know are coming up in the future, and I'll give examples of that, or those projects that we don't know that may be coming up, but we may need funding for an expansion of City Hall. I mean, we don't need one, but that's just an out there example of if tomorrow we had to do an expansion of City Hall. Right now we would have to bond the money and then pay for the bond out of general fund revenues or fund balance or whatever. But those projects that we know are coming up in the next couple of years, one of them, for example, is Route 31 expansion project. Troy can give the exact dates on it, but I'll say within the next 5 years, that project's going to move forward. And the city council committed, as part of that project, committed to lighting, paying for the, taking on the responsibility for funding lighting and the public, it's not a sidewalk, it's really a public path as part of that project. And the estimated cost for those two things alone are $2 million. Well, if that project was happening tomorrow, we'd have to figure out where on our existing budget we would come up with that money at, or we'd have to bond it. And so again, the natural gas use tax would go 100% towards a project like that we know what the dollar amount is, it's coming up. We would put that money away to be able to pay for that project as it comes forward. The last couple of things I'll say is that in terms of the natural gas use tax, a question came up about whether it can be partitioned or not. So what's in the ordinance is a 5 cent per therm on the net, which is the maximum for natural gas use tax. That can be broken down. So it can be 1 cent, 2 cent, 3 cent, 4 cents. It can be something adopted now and increased over time. It can be something that we're recommending in the ordinances that they go into effect June 1st. We can adopt it now and put off the implementation of it until 2023 instead of 2022. What I will say in that is that I feel strongly, and I would recommend strongly, that at the very least, the electric use tax be considered for adoption as soon as we can. since that will go to fund our existing capital asset program. And if council chooses to partition and blend in the natural gas use tax or defer an implementation to some future date, that's fine, since those projects are a couple years out into the future unless something comes up. But that's what we have the fund balance for if an emergency comes up. So sorry I went on a little bit long, but I thought it was important to review kind of where we're at financially and our success that we've had together, that we've taken positive and frugal steps to put us in a good financial position, and that I feel strongly that that I would not make this recommendation to council if I didn't feel it was the right thing for us to do to prepare for those capital asset maintenance and replacement needs that we have and new projects that are coming up into the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Derek. All right, I'm looking for a motion, and this will be two separate votes, but I am looking for a motion and a second to approve 6D. We'll go with 6D1, motion to adopt ordinances amending the McHenry City Code, adding a new Title III, Chapter 8, imposing a new electric use tax. So I'm looking for a motion to approve 6D, the first section. Alderman Strack?
I'll make that motion as the mayor stated the first half of item number 1.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Miller?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion on this item only. Alderman Sandy.
Derek, thank you very much for the input. You definitely put a lot of time and effort into this, and Carolyn also. Appreciate everything, and Derek and I had definitely had a very good and in-depth discussion on both of these taxes. Just real quickly, so people understand this, the utility tax for electricity is a tax. This would be the first time we'd be looking at doing this, correct?
As far as I know.
Okay.
Carolyn?
Yes, we've never looked at it before.
Okay, Carolyn or Derek, do either one of you know how long this has been available to us? I'm going to guess possibly 20 years.
No, I mean,
Ruth, you know,
Anybody?
David's on here, and also Ruth Schlossberg from David's office is on here.
Yeah, Ruth, you know,
So maybe they can answer it.
Oh, boy. I have the statute in front of me, but I'm not sure when it was passed, but I mean, it was at least amended in the 90s, so it's been at least since then.
And Ruth, thank you for being in the meeting tonight. I guess, and then my next question on top of that is then, so if it was in the 90s, but it was only for municipalities of 25,000 plus, correct?
No.
Everybody?
It's a little funny. Yeah, it's a statute for all municipalities that authorizes certain types of taxes. And then there's some variations you can do as a home rule unit, which is what your the gas tax we've given you is, which is a tax on the users, as opposed to a tax on the business. I think it works out mathematically about the same. I think Carolyn looked at the math about which was a better choice. But I think at least NICOR's position is you probably capture more people with the use tax because you get more than just NICOR. Carolyn, is that right?
Correct. The other type of tax was we could only tax NICOR users, not anybody who would to use a different supplier for gas.
Okay. I mean, I was just focused on that, the first part of it right now, the motion that's on the table or on the floor in regards to the electric utility tax. That's all I have right now.
The electric tax is authorized by statute. It's unusual because it's a tax on the business itself, or what's known as an occupation tax. You could not impose an occupation tax as a home rule unit. Can you hear me
Say
now?
that last statement again.
The electric tax is authorized by statute. It's called an occupation tax because it actually taxes the, oh, I'm sorry, I've got the two mixed up. The gas is a use tax. I mean, the gas is an occupation tax. It's a little bit, it's subtle. The distinction is almost irrelevant for your purposes. You could impose either tax by statute, either as home rule or not. It's just, you can reach a few more people with the gas tax than you would if you use the statute, if you instead rely on your home rule powers.
And to your knowledge, okay, or you might be reading right out of the statute, but the electricity use tax was voted into law sometime in the 90s.
I need a minute to find out the history of it. I don't have it right in front of me. I don't know, but I think it's probably been around. I think it's been around at least as long as I've been doing this, so 15 plus years.
Okay. I have no further questions right now. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Yes, I appreciate everything the city does, the city staff. But I think it's bad timing right now for this. You know, our country is inflation, food prices going crazy, gas prices. And to add this to the pile, I think it's just not the good time right now. So I'll be voting against this and the other one too.
Alderman Glad, go ahead.
Yeah, there is a stipulation as far as the charge for collecting the gas. Is there a charge from ComEd as far as the electric? As far as collecting the tax?
I believe there is, as I remember.
I don't remember. If I missed it, I don't remember reading that in here.
Got something on that?
Are you asking about the 3% fee?
The 3% fee is for NICOR, correct?
No,
What about
3%?
ComEd?
ComEd has it as well, and the electric one has it. It's in section 3-8-5, number 2.
And the way I read NICOR, I'm sure it's probably written the same way with this, and that's the fact that besides the tax, they add the 3%. In other words, they're not deducting 3% from the city, but they're actually going to charge us 3% as consumers. Is that right?
I don't think so. I believe they.
How does that work? I mean, I think is not it. We need to know exactly what we're voting on. So
you're right. You're correct. They can add it. You're correct.
Okay, so in other words, I'm looking at my usage last year kilowatts, looking at the amount that you're talking about that they tax, or we would tax. We're talking an extra $54.87 for the year. And then there would be an additional 3% of that would probably be also that I would have to pay ComEd for collecting it. Am I reading that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, the two utilities together come out to $84 or $83.91. So, you know, I mean, we were, on a $200,000 house on property taxes, it only went up $3 and some odd cents. Well, now we're talking hitting homeowners 80 some dollars. So, and granted, my electric bills are a little higher than others because of Christmas and whatnot. I do a little bit more than most do outside, a lot more than the average. So that could add to a little bit higher, but maybe what, 15%? So I agree with what was said as far as with the economy and the unknowns, what's been going on with inflation. I'd like to kind of hold off on these. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council?
Someone speak.
Alderman Santee,
Thank you. I'm sorry. I was already apologize. I apologize to the council. I'm trying to get everything on the table here so people understand this. I mean, people here on the council, but also people, listening and watching in. When is there a good time to adopt a tax? There isn't. It's the nature of what's and what's out there today is Derek will agree. I brought that up to him. I said, look at what's happening today in the country. Your inflation, your gas prices. It's definitely hurting the pocketbook. And I mean, sure, you have to weigh into that. But turn the card to the other side, and we had a presentation in January speaking on how we can actually have our budgets in place and have the money to invest like into the streetscapes on Route 31. There's a great story on 120 and Route 31 that I don't want to waste people's time on, but I hope most of us on the council know about it in regards to lighting. So it's not going towards, I don't want to say frivolous items, but just, it's going towards what has to be rebuilt, reconstructed, new things that we're working along with the state in regards to, once again, Route 31. It's, for vehicles, maintenance that's in need. There's a formula that the Public Works Director, Troy Strange, put together in the last few years in regards to how to get more money into rebuilding streets and repairing streets. And we're spending over $2 million this summer. It's incredible. It's a huge positive, and it's going to continue. There is a lot of this that is investing into our infrastructure, into our city. And, it's a tough vote, and I get it. You don't feel good today. And I don't know how you weigh that into what we're trying to do for our own city, our own municipality, something that we can control, and we seem to be working in the right direction. I really would like to listen to more people on the council express their thoughts and opinions, and maybe a couple of questions, because I know I definitely presented it to Director Moorfield earlier today, and he gave me we had multiple communications today, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate Carolyn helping him out on a couple of questions. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Alderman Miller, go ahead.
So I find it easy to support this because months ago we asked staff, and particularly Administrator Moorfield, to go find new money and to make sure he turned over every rock and every sheet of paper to make sure we weren't missing anything that was available to us like this. And we said, go find it. And if you find it, bring it to us. And if you bring it to us and it's new money, then we make sure that we designate new money for new stuff.
Mhm.
So he's done just that. He went and found money that was available, and he's designating it to the capital improvements, not paying operating costs. He's going to replace stuff. He's going to buy new stuff, things that the city needs and hasn't been able to afford because it hasn't been in our budget. So I think when we give our staff that direction and they do their job and they bring it back to us, we have to support that project, that work plan that they bring to us. So I agree with all that's been said. It's a difficult vote to vote yes for additional tax, but we know we're in need. We know we need the money to continue to go progressive and to make the city the best it can be. So I have to support this because this is what we told staff to do, and the money is needed. So I'm a yes.
Thank you, Sue. Alderman Harding, go ahead.
And I just want to echo what Sue mentioned too just now. That's the way I feel also. And, you know, my big concern is down the road is the money that McHenry is going to have to put up for Route 31 and 120. And that's going to be, a big nut to crack. And I think this is the best opportunity to do this is right now and in this avenue of funding.
Thank you, Ron. Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Devine?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I agree with Alderman Santee said about when is there a good time for this. I have big concerns with inflation, the economy, gas prices, $100 a gallon or $100 per barrel, oil prices. I can't support both these. I'm willing to support 6D, but I would like to hold off on 6E for sure.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Strack.
Again, to echo everybody's conversation here, when we talked about the sewer and water fund and the increase in the infrastructure that needs to be maintained, we're still talking about the same thing here. We're talking about the fact that these pieces of equipment will need to be replaced, and the infrastructure has to stay in place for this community to continue to be as strong as it is. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what we have to look at. And none of us want to make this vote. None of us feel good making it. But to provide what we can to our residents is what the end goal is at the end of the day. And providing a, infrastructure to keep their homes safe and all of the things that we need to do as a city is what we have to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Glad.
Yeah, it's great to do all these things for the residents that live here, but if you're driving them all out because of taxes, they're not here to receive those services. And like I say, it's just, when is a good time? It's never a good time to add taxes, but when is the worst times is what we should be looking at. And right now, with what I see in inflation, this is one of the worst times to start adding taxes, government taxes, especially local. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Alderman Santee?
Alderwoman Miller brought up a good point, and it's tough to move on something like this, but we did. It only goes back, to what, 2 or 3 months. We did put the ball in the court of our staff and on our administrator to find this. Now, we told them in that meeting also, do not touch property tax and do not, or at least, I did not want, we have some sales tax movement we could possibly do, but, that was at least personally against, something I wanted to do. Tax is a tax. Property one is just a word that is, I don't know. It's just no, everybody just feels that's death warmed over if you bring up property tax. And not that we should have done it, but what this, the lady from David's office, Ruth, expressed, or at least I got that information, is that we've had, I brought it up probably 10, 15 years ago. I said, hey, don't we have an electrical tax we could look at? Don't we have a gas tax? And at that time, it really wasn't looked into that far. Yeah, it's a tough one. And I feel a lot like how Alderman Devine expressed in regards to it's tough to maybe go for both of them. I see what this electric use tax can do and where we're putting it. And, there's another vote after this one, but you can't feel comfortable moving forward, but we gave them a job to do, and they put the ball back in our court, and I do appreciate what staff has done with this, at least with this first one, the electrical use tax. Thank you.
You're muted, Mayor.
Yep, thank you. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to make a public comment regarding this item? I see none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Hold on.
Oh, there's somebody.
Terry, go ahead.
Hello? Oh,
All right, just quick observation tonight. Reinforced the TIF, abatement on taxes for empty buildings. Every service that the city offers has been taxed or feed. I have to agree with Glab that, and it's not the right time. Now, I don't envy your position, but lower taxes attracts business. And I guess if you're going to give it away, that's okay. However, kind of disappointing. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Patricia, go ahead and call the roll.
okay. Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
You're on mute, Alderman Harding.
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
No.
Alderman Glab,
No.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Thank you, council. That is passed. Next item on the agenda is 6D. Second portion is a new chapter 9 imposing a new gas use tax and authorizing the execution of an agreement with NICOR for the collection and distribution of the natural gas use tax. Director Moorfield, do you have anything to add on this one?
No, not at all. Not that I already did, just that it can be partitioned, 5 cent max per therm. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I guess I identified that as part of the conversation, but I just wanted to remind you since it's been a while since I presented. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve 6D, the second portion as presented. Alderman Santee.
Well, I will make that motion, but my motion is to present the natural gas use tax at 3 cents and to be authorized and adopted in fiscal year 2023. So 1 year out.
So that would be June. So right now in there, it's June, whatever the date is, 1st to 22 for both. So you would do it and make it go into effect June 1st of 2023.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Second. Alderman Miller.
I will second that with the modification to June of 2023
And then,
and the
Yeah.
3 cents.
okay.
3 cents.
Okay. Alderman Santee, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll start with, I'll start on the top here. My explanation is that you could describe it as a veil explanation, but yes, I'd like to move this down a little bit. Yes, I feel the need to place this in here at some point in the future. Once again, this is for the build out of maintenance, municipal needs in the foreseeable future, streetlights, the streetscapes, and, you know, is it a minor relief? We don't, you know, someone pull out their crystal ball and find out what's going to happen in 9 months from now, and then give me a call later, okay? But we don't know what's going to happen, and I'm just trying to, I guess, alleviate somewhat of a influence of a discomfort / pain on constituents, but still trying to move the city forward because we've asked them to do this initiative. And I don't want to, I don't want to stop this progression 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion by council, Alderman Miller, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I seconded the motion because first of all, I like stepping it out to June of 2023. So it's incremental in implementation, and then stepping it down to 3 cents. Again, I want to give an opportunity for us to take a step back, look at what it is going to create and how we're going to best use that revenue. So I want to be able to get this plan in play, and it will be least impactful to our residents. So I think that was a good move. Thank you, Alderman Santee.
Any other questions, comments by council? I'm gonna open up for public input. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to make a public comment regarding the second portion of 6D? See none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
No.
Alderman Glad,
No.
Thank you, council. That is passed as well. No discussion items this evening. We are going to go into an executive session regarding property acquisition. And also we're going to go to possible litigation. So we're going to go ahead and go into executive session. We'll go ahead and put you into another room, right, Monty? You'll go ahead and get them out.
I will.
Okay, so Monty will go ahead and get you into a different room, and then we'll let you back in 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, you gotta have a vote. I'm sorry.
A motion to enter executive session. Alderman McClatchy.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Alderman Santee for a second.
Second motion.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Trish.
Okay. Alderman Santee,
Here.
Alderman Glad,
Here.
Alderman McClatchy,
Here.
Alderman Harding,
Here.
Alderman Strack,
Here.
Alderman Devine,
Here.
Alderwoman Miller.
Here.
All right, thank you. Staff reports, you've received your staff reports. Is there any other staff reports this evening, Derek?
Bill probably wanted to throw out Shamrocks to Fox next weekend, 2 weeks. Go ahead, Bill.
2 weeks, yeah. The 12th, March 12th and 13th, we'll have the Shamrocks to Fox. So we're getting we're starting to ramp up some publicity. I know the Chicago Tribune has reached out to us about for some information. So just putting all those pieces together. I think the bands, our band lineup is set now. All the pieces are pretty much in place. I have parade apps rolling in, so that's the one piece that is coming together. Tents, all that decorating and things will start. You'll start to see all that happen too. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. Just keep your fingers crossed for weather, as always, in any kind of March event.
Bill, real quick, looking for volunteers.
Yes. Yeah, I have a volunteer spreadsheet, so I'll put that out to anybody that's interested in
Thank you.
number of roles.
All right. Any other staff reports? Probably not, right? All right. I have nothing for this evening. City council comments? Alderman Santee.
Hey, real quick, for Administrator Moorfield. Just to refresh my memory, when federal funds came through, I believe it was from the American Recovery Act or Plan, we got a certain amount of money in. What was that number? And then how was that dispersed, or has it been dispersed yet?
All right, so there's two answers to that question, and I'm sure I'll use the wrong terminology, so Carolyn will have, and the wrong dollar amount, so Carolyn will have to correct all of it. So as a result of the COVID, the city got about $1.3 million right in there, right, Carolyn? Close?
Correct.
All right, so that $1.3 million, there was some very specific things that could be used on, having to do with impacts to the community and its response to COVID. So what we did with that is that went to offset basically police salary costs, since they were dealing with the COVID every day, most of it. And really it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? So we put it back into the general fund to offset the costs of law enforcement or police salaries tied to the COVID response. All right, so that's the first part. The second part is we're getting ARPA funds, whatever that stands for, from the feds, and just like $3.8 million. I think, again, off the top of my head, the amount. We got half of that money, and the other half we're supposed to get this year. So this goes back to the capital asset discussion. The Route 31 project, we have $5+ million of costs that we're responsible for that project. 2 million, and I'm using, again, just round numbers, 2 million of those costs are the lighting and the path, which will dedicate the gas use tax to a portion of that coming up that you just adopted. So we'll put that money away, that money away in the bank to be able to pay for that 2 million. The other $3 million+ is water and sewer relocation costs that the city's responsible for paying for the state's widening of Route 31. So the ARPA funds, $3 million+ that we got is in the bank to pay for that $3+ million of water sewer costs that we're going to be responsible for as part of that Route 31 widening. Does that answer all your questions? It's not sexy, but it's money we'd have to come. It's money we'd have to come up with some other way. So just dedicating that money and putting it in the bank and being able to pay for it when it comes up is. And I think the timing on dedicating that money for expenditure falls in line with IDOT's plans for those improvements, because I think it has to be dedicated by 25 and spent by 26 or something like that. And that falls in line so far with where IDOT's at on that project.
If that project stays on that time frame.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other city council comments? Alderman Strack, go ahead.
Just a quick question, if Troy's still on, is the widening project, are they slating that to start in 24? I know we had this discussion previously, and I'm just wondering if that's still part of that, or if it will not actually kick off till 25.
I would say 24 is their most optimistic start. They've only kicked off phase 1, which is the plan production portion, or phase 2, which is the plan production board portion of engineering process in the past year or so, maybe even 6-8 months. They've just now started right away acquisition, basically making initial contact with property holders. So being that we're 2 months into 2022, to be starting construction in 24 for them would be very optimistic based on everything they have to coordinate. So I think we're probably at this point 25 or after. And then as far as the utility relocation goes, we would like to be at least the construction season before they break ground. We may even get some pressure to start sooner than that.
So ultimately, what Derek and Vic are talking about on these dollars, Troy, makes sense for us to get started on that process when we can.
Yep, and we are about, I would say, 30% into our design process with Patrick Engineering for the relocation design, and they are also the phase 2 designer for IDOT. So that, I don't remember when we approved that contract. That was on purpose. We wanted to have that good line of communication and have them coordinating their design with our design, because we really don't want to pay to relocate something twice.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other city council comments? All right, looking for a motion and a second to adjourn. Alderman Santee,
Makes a motion to adjourn.
second. Alderman Harding,
I'll second that motion.
thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Harding,
Yes.
Alderman Glad. Alderman Glad. Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Strack,
Yes.
Alderman Devine,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
All right, Alderman Glad wanted to get out of here. All right, everyone have a good evening.
No, I was there. I just
Oh,
said.
there you are.
I saw you. Good night.
All right, take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.